Hey Tigers, welcome to our second edition of your fraction review. We have a huge test coming up this week. Can anyone in this class tell me what day your test is this week? Our Unit 3 exam? Wednesday. So we have a couple days left and we need to make sure we're practicing. So to help you practice, this video is going to be all about comparing our fractions. There will be a number of questions on that test on Wednesday that ask you to do this. So let's review the things we've learned so far to make sure that we are masters at comparing these fractions. When they ask us to compare a fraction, they're asking us to take two different fractions and decide, are they the same size? Is one bigger? Is one smaller? Or are they unequal? Well, we are going to use a special method to do that. We call that our butterfly method. So if they ask us to compare 1/4 compared to, when you see this circle, they usually want you to use that for your inequality, so that means compared to 3/5. Well, normally we would compare using our denominators, make sure they're the same, and then compare our numerators, but our denominators don't match. So to be able to compare numbers like this that have different denominators, we cross multiply. That's where the butterfly method comes in. So we're going to cross multiply 1 times 5. When we're cross multiplying, we always start from the bottom, multiply up, and land at the top. So 5 times 1, my cross product, the answer I get when I multiply across, is 5. Then I'm going to do the same on the other side. 4 times 3 is 12. So these now, 5 and 12, are my two cross products. Those are the numbers I'm going to compare to figure out what my final inequality is. So I look at 5 and 12. Which one of these numbers is bigger, class? Who can raise their hand and tell me which is bigger, 5 or 12? 12 is bigger. So because the 12 is on top of 3/5, 3/5 is my bigger fraction, and my gator mouth is open towards that bigger number. So whatever side the cross product is bigger on, that's your bigger fraction. So this is telling me that 3/5 is greater than 1/4. Now let's imagine that there's a mixed number that we want to compare. Let's say they give us 4 and 2/5 compared to 4 and 1/3. Well, in this case, we have mixed numbers now, but the process is still the same. And luckily for us, our whole numbers in the mixed number match. So if that's the case, I can ignore them. I don't really need these guys. I'm going to ignore them, I'm going to cross them out, and I'm just going to focus on my fraction pieces. And I'm going to use my same butterfly method. So I'm going to start at the bottom and multiply across. 5 times 1, that gives me 5. 2 times 3, that gives me 6. 6 is bigger than 5, so that means that 4 and 2/5 is bigger than 4 and 1/3. So it helped me that my fractions and my mixed numbers matched because that allowed me to just compare the fraction parts. But the last example we're going to go over is an example of when these mixed numbers don't match. Now let's say I gave you a really hard one and I asked you to compare 3 and 2/3 compared to 2 and 1/2. Now in this scenario, we can't just throw away our whole numbers because they don't match. They don't cancel each other out. They're not the same. So for this one, before we can compare anything, we're going to use our special trick to help turn these mixed numbers into something easier to work with. We're going to use around the world. So we're going to use around the world to turn both of these into an improper fraction that we can then compare. So if I do around the world, that's going to turn 3 times 3 is 9 plus 2 is 11 over 3 compared to 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1, 5 over 2. Now that I've done around the world, I rewrote my inequality with the improper fractions, and now I can just do the same old butterfly method that I have mastered and know how to rock. So I'm going to multiply across. 11 times 2 is 22. 3 times 5, 15. 22 is bigger than 15, so my gator mouth should be facing 11 over 3, which means 3 and 2/3 is bigger than 2 and 1/2. Hopefully this was a nice little refresher about how we can use our cross multiplication to compare our fractions. But remember, we can only do this if we have two fractions or more to compare. If we only have one, we have nothing to cross multiply it with and it wouldn't work out so well. But please go back, rewatch this video to make sure you are completely comfortable with how to compare your fractions for Wednesday's tests. I'll see you later with the next episode of this review. Bye, Tigers.